have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged.
I need you to pull the plug.
Sounds to me like you may need to unplug, man.
So you're gonna go unplug? Unplug.
Leave my plug alone!
Time to pull the plug.
One. Hello, Durham. Welcome to another episode of Durham Unplugged. I'm your host, Sterling Lee. And today we have an incredibly special guest. So a little background on this man. He's what some would call a jack of all trades, and I would say a master at all of them. He's a musician. He's an actor. He is a motivational speaker. He is a father. He's got a collection of board games that rivals any toy store I've seen in the world. And I believe he's our first UN award winner. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you, Sean Mauricette. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks so much for doing.
Dude, I've never had an intro like that, by the way. That was awesome.
Oh, I want to. It was actually shorter. I would have gone longer. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this. So first things first. You're actually my first guest who's ever had an IMDb page, which is awesome. So I describe myself as acting adjacent. I think if I hadn't gone to politics, I probably would have pursued acting more seriously. I did some Second City classes.
Okay.
And we have a few friends in common. Looks like based on the acting. So are you still actively acting now?
So I'm still an ACTRA member.
Right.
Having a young family. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. So the answer is I still get calls from my agent. I still keep in touch with her. But the world of acting, what a lot of people don't realize is like, you'll get a call, be like, congratulations, you got the part. You're like, yes. So we need you to keep 4 or 5 days open between now and the next 4 months.
Yeah, no problem, right?
No
Being
problem.
a father of 2, no problem.
No problem.
I don't have obligations or commitments.
Yeah, in the world of acting, you can't say to them, "I'm sorry, I'm unavailable."
Right.
No, that's not the way it works because they've got camera crews. So you have to be ready to go. I'm talking drop what you're doing, and that's difficult. You know what I mean? And so I still love acting, but I'm still an ACTRA member. But I had to scale back just because of having a young family right now.
I hear. I also have a 3-year-old, and I can completely understand.
So you get it, man.
Well, I mean, not like I do. I'm going to say an eighth of what you do in terms of my life, and I feel like I'm too busy. I forgot to mention you're also an architect, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have a degree in architecture.
Of course you do. Because why doesn't an actor, musician?
But you know what, though, Sterling? Yo, listen, that's the secret to everything, though, because doing school taught me how to take whatever's in this head of mine and build it. You know what I mean? So whether it's building a child's self-confidence, whether it's building curriculum for a school, whether it's building an actual structure, building a hip hop beat, that's what the whole thing is. And that's why the program that I run, which is called Lift, laying important foundations together. That foundation piece is a play off my architecture because you have to have a strong foundation for whatever you want to do.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And no matter what, if you're acting, if you're cooking, you gotta make sure, everything is gelling and you got a strong foundation. In hip hop, the foundation of a hip hop beat is the bass line. It ties everything together. Without the bass, everything just floats.
Between the two of us, did you just shoehorn that in afterwards? Like you lifted mine first and then you just kind of fit it all in afterwards? Well, yeah. Or that was always the plan.
Homie, I'm giving you like the Coles Notes version of what I've learned.
Right, fair enough.
Right, because it took me. I had a dream originally where I remember sitting down in 2002 when I was about to graduate with one of my professors, John Schneer, and John said, "So Sean, what do you want to do?" We're sitting in a restaurant. I said, "Well, I'm gonna DJ at night, and I'm gonna do architecture in the day. It's gonna be awesome."
Kind of like a hip hop Batman.
Yeah. And he goes, "Hey, that sounds fun. I just got one question." I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "When do you sleep?"
Right.
And I didn't think about that. And he looked at me and he said, Sean, you may be an amateur architect for the rest of your life. And I felt my heart just sink. Like, what are you saying, bro?
You mean professional, what you meant to say, right?
Well, no, he said amateur.
No, I know.
And then he said, well, no, hold on. He said, listen, the root word of the word amateur is amor. Amor means to love. You may do this on an amateur level, but love it more than the people who do it professionally. Always remember that. And I always did remember that. And so I keep that in the back of my mind where, you could do it like day in, day out, which, wasn't really for me, the office thing, punching out drawings on AutoCAD every day. After it got to me, you know what I mean? But if you can do smaller projects, but they're more of an extension of who you are as opposed to regurgitating what another architect is sending down to you, you may love it more. You know what I'm saying? So these are lessons that took me, a long time to learn, and I'm still learning.
It's funny. If I always look back to 20-year-old Sterling, or 20. I graduated when I was 23. 23-year-old Sterling, full of piss and vinegar, wanting to take over the world, and you just want to sit them down and be like, "Hey, man, take a breath, slow down, and it'll happen. Just have confidence." Happen. But all those insecurities when you finish school, you're just like, okay, now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? And for me, I went into sales of all things because I just I had to get a job. So I got a job at Rogers, and then, here I am in politics. It's crazy the way the directions the world will take you. If you just kind of go with it, right? If anything, I think my big philosophy in life is, the Second City philosophy of yes and. Whatever life throws you, just accept the offer and just keep it going in your own way, right?
And I'll add to that. Not only do you accept it, but you got to accept the failure too.
Yeah.
Because we learn a lot through failure, but the only way to figure it out if you're going to fail is to try, and that's where it starts, right? So,
well, on that note, then, what do you think is one of your biggest failures that you've learned the most from?
Oh boy.
You can't just throw out the failure thing and then not, give us some real world examples.
So there's a big one. But it had nothing to do with me.
Sure.
But it was the biggest failure that I experienced. And I'm probably limited to how much detail I could give, but I can say that in 2018, it's a long story, but in 2018, I went with a group of folks into the Caribbean, into Antigua, to pitch these homes that I designed, which were climate resilient homes that could really, withstand Category 5 hurricanes and up, right? And these group in Toronto were working on some ideas, and they were like, "Hey, you're an architect. You have a degree in architecture, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you take a stab at this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I hope they like me. I'll just do what I do." Presented. They're like, "This is awesome. You're going to Antigua, right?" So they flew to Antigua, did this big presentation. The project was for like hundreds of millions of dollars. I won't say exactly how much, but it was a lot. And we left that. We left after that presentation with basically the prime minister wanting, 300 homes. I think it was around 77 million or something like that. And my life had changed. Like in that moment, everything. And I'm not just talking. Okay, so people listening might think, okay, well, you're just talking about money. I'm talking about something bigger than that. I'm talking about when you have enough money in your life that you don't need to think about money, you can just be creative now. You think about that freedom. You're no longer thinking about your mortgage.
Sean, I think about that on a daily basis. Every time I play the lottery, every time.
Well, imagine having it for the time I was there,
next to it.
and that, and it was one of 5 islands, and so that was just one, and so I felt it, you know what I mean, and I was in that night. I went into the water and swam, and I felt this feeling of I've never felt this in my life, you know what I mean. I can't describe it's like elate. I can't put it into words, okay?
Sure.
But the politics is a tricky thing, and there's people sometimes, I'm saying, there's dynamics that little old me doesn't understand. I'm just that creative mind, and so in the end, for various reasons, the project never happened. It was just basically struck down. But that trip taught me that anything is possible in life, because I came this close to having, I'm talking like everything from my scholarships for my kids, never even worrying about a bill ever again.
It's like signing your first NBA contract, that like $60 million contract, right? Like, it's life-changing.
This was even,
right,
homie, like you're never thinking about money ever again. You are done. And my job with this organization was strictly to create projects for the betterment of humanity.
Right.
So it was literally like, got back to Toronto, Sean, what do you want to do? I want to clean up the Caribbean Sea. Done. What else? I'm like, what do you mean done? He's like, we'll just get a barge and get a scraper and scrape all the plastic and turn the plastic into pellets, sell it. What else do you want to do? I'm like, well,
I hadn't thought past that.
Yeah, it's like, dude.
I thought that was going to take a lifetime.
And then it gets crazier, because then it's like there's certain things I wanted to do with solar technology and different things, but I don't know how to do it. They're like, well, we'll bring people in around you who know how to do it. What else? So I went from having to figure everything out, to now I have the ability to actually bring people in and work, and my architectural thesis
and be the high level idea guy and have people just kind of bring those ideas to fruition, right? That's
and look over it like a hawk and make sure it's done proper. And so I would just say it's a long-winded answer, but to answer you, that was the biggest. But I learned a lot, and I still made certain contacts. So I wouldn't say that it was a complete waste of time. It certainly wasn't. You may still see certain things happen, and I really want to go back to the Caribbean and help. That's where my parents are from, Trinidad and Grenada, St. Lucia. Shout out. So yeah. That's
we
the
have a
answer.
ton of St. Lucian viewers, just so you know. So
I know.
Well,
I didn't realize, like, my last name's Mauricette. My family basically, like, they're all over that island, man.
Oh, really?
And the joke is when I went, because long story short, after I did the presentation in Antigua, it went so well, they flew me off to St. Lucia to do the same presentation to the prime minister out there. But I never got to meet with him, scheduling conflicts, different things.
Of course.
But when I got off the plane and they discovered what my last name was, they were like, wow, like, who are you? And then there was a mix-up, because when my family came to meet me, who I'd never met before, there's another Sean Mauricette. So they were expecting to see him.
Right.
And then they saw me, and they're looking me up and down like, who are you? Right.
Yeah, no, this is
and
my
so
name.
But everybody in the island, they're so multi-talented, right? They do a lot of different things. They're all jack of all trades. It's crazy. And so when we got to know each other, they were like, wow, you're like an embodiment, you're like a real extension of us. And they really welcomed me. But on the island, my last name is also, I'm related to the Cadets. My grandmother was a Cadet. So the Cadets and the Mauricettes on that island are two really, really big names there. And so to have somebody from Canada who was a cross section of these two families, they're just like, yo, where'd this guy come from? You know? So it was a fantastic experience, but I still want to go back to the islands, and my goal would be to just to help, man, just to do something to give back
that you want to be, right?
And build it up. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about. So you are an actual United Nations award winner, which is like, what is the award? How did you get the award? Like, tell me all about this.
So what I got the 2012 Medal of Appreciation from the United Nations Association of Canada, and there was a teacher, who was a teacher in Peel, and I was working on a grant to try to get into her school to teach some workshops, and I think the grant was with Ontario Arts Council or something like that. And I'm a horrible grant writer, terrible, okay, just not good at it. And I didn't realize that this same teacher worked with the UN. She sat on some committee with them. And of course, to write a grant, that's how she started to catch wind of all the things I've been doing for like so many years, because they're trying to incorporate that into the proposal. And then she says, well, would you like to speak at this UN event? And I said, sure. And so I get out there and I do my talk, and you know what I mean? And around that time, I should also mention that I was being nominated for a YMCA Peace Medallion. And I really wanted that, you know what I mean? Because I can go anywhere in the world and the YMCA can speak volumes, and it's, you know what I mean? And I love, the work they do and so forth. Did not get the award. So that day that I found out that I did not get the award was the same day that I had the UN presentation. I do the presentation for the UN. It's all good. I get off stage. The next guy goes up to speak, and who I thought was speaking. And there was a problem with the projector. The slide, the projector screen would not come down.
Of course.
So in the land of business, when you come off stage, you don't go back on stage. Like you take your applause and you kind of fade to, you don't go back up. It kind of kills the whole, yay. And then here he is. Why is this guy back up again? But I said, no, this guy's really struggling. And I knew how to work the board. I think this was like Osgood Hall or something, U of T. And so I went back on stage. I put all that stuff aside, man. Let me help this guy. And so I'm there on the side. I walked up through the stage, and there's awkward silence. This thing felt like it went on for like a 2-3 minutes, man. It was painful. And I'm sitting there in the back trying to help him. And then something told me to look up. And I look up, and the guy's just standing there. He's looking at me. He's like, come out. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
He just says, come out. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I walk out, and he's holding this medal. And I'm very confused. I'm like, am I presenting this for somebody? He's like, no, this is for you.
This is the tech support medal. Thank you so much for helping me get the projector. We had it made just for you.
Well, the guy, he's part of the UN officially,
No,
but
of course,
I've
yeah.
never met him before. I didn't know who he was. He could have been security. And so I said, I go in front of everybody in mid stage. I go, that's for me. And everybody starts to laugh. And he goes, yeah, that's for you. And I realized that when they gave it to me that it's because they got, I mean, my work goes back to 1999, bro. You know what I mean? And so when they caught wind of all the stuff that I've been doing, they presented me with that. So from not getting the YMCA Peace Medallion, but then getting this UN Medal of Appreciation, it was on UN Day. I believe it was like International UN Day or something like that. And it was mind blowing, man. You know what I mean? And that was all because of one particular teacher who felt the need to show some love for my body of work up to that point. Which
And,
at times
was this university at the time, or were you in high school?
So I was out of school by then.
You were done school and everything, right?
Oh yeah. Because 2002 I graduated. This happened in 2012.
Okay.
So yeah, I was long out of school. I believe at the time I was doing I was probably gearing up to be involved in an after school program in Malvern called the Learn program. And I basically created all the multimedia work to attach itself to the curriculum so the kids could learn through arts without realizing that they're even exploring issues like student-teacher relationships, racial bias, and different things like that. So, yeah.
And so you said you've been doing this kind of work since 1999.
Yeah.
Were you, I guess, just starting university or just at the time?
Yeah, I would have been in university, and at the time, so I was a DJ, excuse me, and DJ and beatbox for a rapper in Canada named Infinite, who came out of Rexdale. And when Infinite would go to different schools and he would talk, I would say, yo, you can go sit next to them too. You know, go up there and take some questions from the youth. And I was the only one at the time who was beatboxing and doing architecture. So a lot of questions kept getting funneled back to me, even though there were other artists on stage.
Right.
And then my manager at the time said, you know what? Let's just make a program for you and just start going to the school. So back then, my program wasn't LIFT. It was called the POLE Project, which was Peace, Unity, Leadership, and Learning. And I did that around, Atlanta and all over the place. And then from there, I then branched off, did my own thing, and became LIFT.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's man. I mean, if we're talking about first year university, I was partying and drinking and not taking my studies very seriously.
Well, that's a whole other dynamic, bro. I mean, I was doing architecture in the day, and then at nighttime, I was DJing and beatboxing and doing all this stuff, and I was keeping it a secret while living in Mississauga at the time. So I was taking the bus back and forth. There was no, or to be quite honest, there's times where, I literally slept under my desk. I slept on a pool table. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to sleep on a pool table, but it's the worst. It's
Well, especially when they're playing pool around you. They're like, come on, man.
it's awkward, bro. You know what I'm saying? But it was rough. And even when I went to the US and the UK, there were people whose couches I had to sleep on at the time. I didn't really know them too well. To this day, I consider many of them like brothers to me now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't glamorous, man. This was it was tough. There was nobody paying for my hotel for me to go out there, but I so wanted to branch out and leave Toronto just to see what else was out there and how my art would be received in, let's say, Harlem, the UK, parts of the, when you think UK, oh, London, no. Places you've never heard of before, man. Stoke-on-Trent, Gloucestershire, Wolverhampton, places you've never seen. Right. And it was met with nothing but love. And so I came back to Toronto with a little bit more, the chest is a little higher now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it should be. Like, your world traveled at that age, when people are just like paying off their OSAP and everything, right? Like it's a really cool experience to have experienced. Where do you think you got your artistic side from? Was that from your parents? Was that from, you watched a single performer and was like, this is what I want to do? Like, what's your inspiration?
That's a good question. So for me, it comes from my father. My father's side, my dad plays like 3 or 4 instruments just by ear, can't read a lick of music. And my aunts, they all sing. So that artistic side comes from my dad, but my mother's actually a pretty good drawer as well. But yeah, most of that's coming from my father. My grandfather was also a barber. So I got into barbering. My first, my second sort of real job was barbering. I had a basement barbershop. That's how I got into DJing. My friends couldn't pay me with money, so they would pay me with their parents' old turntables, records, and vinyls, and I would fix it. I would fix the turntables, fix the old, receivers, and I began to build my DJ setup that way. So that was the payment. The payment was a bartering system.
So just to clarify one last time, you can act, you can sing, you can play instruments, you can draw. Is there any artistic thing you're not? Can you dance? Huh?
I used to break dance, bro.
Of course you did.
And then I broke something. And no, it's okay.
Could you spin on your head? That's
no,
always like
bro,
the measure
no.
of breakdancing for me.
No, homie, but I could do the windmill, which is like just the level down from that.
Yeah, trust me.
I used to love dancing, man. I used to love dancing, but
I remember this one kid in my high school loved breakdancing. They'd always do the little exhibitions just randomly in the hallways.
Yeah.
And now he's an artist for Marvel Comics. Just one of those
wow.
things where it's just like he's like a major artist, and I was like, I know that guy. He was breakdancing and
wow.
could do the head spin, but now he's a world-renowned artist. Just one of those weird things.
But you'd be surprised about transferable skills. Once you have the ability to be creative, there's a vibe around that. You know what I mean? And so in my world, it's not far removed to go from dancing to drawing.
Right.
They're both modes of expression. Yeah.
So just so people know, the way our paths crossed was, I think it was about 2 years ago. The region of Durham had asked you to speak during Black History Month. It was the opening event of Black History Month, and you were asked to be like a motivational speaker there. And I think you had done it before. I'm not quite sure because I think it was my first time as a counselor.
Was it at J. Clark?
No, this one was at the region headquarters.
Oh, at the region. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So it might have been your first or second one then.
Yes. The
and
second
then
one.
I'm a cynical jerk sometimes. I'm just like, motivational speaker, here we go. And I was enraptured by everything you said.
Oh, wow.
And that's like,
man.
not to be just like, it spoke to me to the point where I actually came up to you and shook your hand. I was like, oh my God, like that was
wow.
very powerful. I appreciate that. And you're like,
wow.
yeah, no problem. And then I think you live in Ajax too.
I do, man. That's why I mentioned Jay Clark, because those are the two presentations that predated the one you saw me at. And going to those two at Jay Clark, is what made me move to Ajax.
Crazy.
I'll explain.
Yeah.
So I was totally against it. At the time, me and my wife were living in Thorncliffe Park, Leaside Towers, 40th floor, beautiful view. You could see the curve of the earth up there, man. It was beautiful. And we just got to a point where we had
sorry, Sean. This is a flat Earth podcast. Just
yeah.
Sorry, I should give you a heads up.
I apologize, brother, man. Yes, it's flat, but there's just maybe my peripheral.
It's your perception.
The landscape. But yeah, man, we decided to move, and my wife was like, "Well, let's go to Ajax." I said, "Nah, man," because I had friends that lived out here on the 401. When I passed that little brown CN bridge, that's my marker for Ajax. I'm like, I don't know where I am right now, man. And then I did this presentation at J. Clark for Black History Month, and after I was done, there was literally a lineup of people that wanted to talk to me. I mean, a literal lineup. I started to notice a pattern in the lineup. They weren't just Black folks trying to talk to me. I started to notice Black families. Now there's a difference. I started noticing man, wife, children, right? Man, child, woman, child, right? And I said, I've never seen this. And it just the vibe, I grew up on the Cosby Show, man. So that's what I wanted for myself. And then I met Bill Cosby, but I had a life lesson about blurring the lines between the actor and the man himself. Okay. Yeah. We could talk about that another time, but I did get to meet him. Flew out to Hartford, Connecticut to meet him and wrote him a poem and all that good stuff. So then the organization asked me to come back the next year and deliver the same presentation at J. Clark. And I actually said no. I said, I don't do the same presentation 2 times in a year, because you're gonna get the same people going to see it and be like, oh yeah, I saw this already. Yeah. They said, no. They said, we don't care. It was that good. You're coming back. Like we don't care. And so I said, okay. I delivered the second year, the same response, man. Same lineup of people, and I saw this and I said to my wife, I said, I'm open to it now. And now that I live out here, I absolutely love it, man. I absolutely love it. We're close to the lake. You know what I mean? There's lots of Caribbean restaurants and shop, grocery stores. Everybody's cool. It was a different vibe. So right. Everything's 5 minutes away. Love it here, man. I always
tell people when they're just like, why Ajax? If just like, well, it's the best place to raise a family. Only because like our kids will be exposed to true diversity, true multiculturalism. right? Like I grew up in Markham, and now Markham is like 95% Asian, and that's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. That's just
Yeah.
the way the population grows.
Mhm.
But in Ajax, I have a huge Muslim population, huge Tamil, huge Caribbean, huge, and that's what I want my kid to be exposed to.
Yeah.
You know, I want him to embrace cultures and different points of view, and different foods is obviously the key part in my life. So like I do love Ajax for that, and it doesn't look like it's changing. It's getting more and more multicultural, which is what I embrace as part of this. But so on top of this Black History Month, you've also been part of some key Durham region initiatives, like their anti-Black racism, talk they had, I think, last year, and you were, I guess, one of the moderators at the top.
Yes, that was wild, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never done anything like that in the sense of that many people calling in.
Yeah, that many people
on hold.
watching. Like it was, and good. Like I'm glad people are engaged with
Yes.
these issues. And unfortunately, I still don't think enough people are engaged with these issues.
Yeah,
Like, we're still at a point where we're still kind of rehashing the same lessons. But just from your point of view, what's it like to kind of deal with that kind of pressure of being the quote unquote face? Like Selena's very much embraced the role of being that face for change. And it's been amazing what she's been doing, her post-politics career. I think she's done way more in these like 2-3 years that she's been out of politics, in advancing these racial issues. But now that, you've in a sense become a de facto ambassador for these issues as well. How does that, like, is that responsibility? Do you think about it at all? Or do you like, what are some of the goals you have?
That's a good segue into something that just happened in my life that's really been transformative this past, I'm going to say 2 weeks. So, I usually don't do, by virtue of this story, it's going to answer your question in terms of understanding my potential new role and abilities and responsibilities. I was approached to do 3 corporate talks this Black History Month to some large corporations, Hydro One, Hatch, which is a huge engineering company firm across Canada, across South Africa, across the U.S. and parts of the U.S., I should say, and Daily Bread Food Bank. And I was approached by somebody from the Ontario Black History Society, and this, okay, can you do this? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I would lay out my presentation for the lady. This is what I would like to do. If they think that's cool, then I would do it. But I don't know how they're going to take to this kind of youth worker freestyling, acting. Like, would they laugh at all that? So would they just think that's silly? Even though in my mind, I know that it gives me a broader spectrum of things to speak to and experiences. In sometimes corporate worlds, you don't know how they're going to react. It's a different landscape. And then she said, well, they all want you, so go in. So I went into these virtual presentations that were like lunch and learn situations for the most part. And I went in there, Sterling, on some like, I hope you guys like me. I hope you like me. I just hope you like my presentation.
Right.
I'll do the best I can, and we'll see.
If
what
you're going to
happens.
laugh at me, just turn off your camera.
Just
type thing, right?
Go easy on me, man.
Right.
Sterling, 2 of the 3 corporations, so Hydro One and Hatch, I set new records for their ever in their company as the highest attended event and the event with the highest positive rating of any event they've ever had for any speaker ever.
That's awesome.
And so now it's like, we want more. The only negative thing I got was this presentation wasn't long enough.
Yeah. You got us hooked. Now get
us hooked.
Yeah.
And so I did things in that presentation, and I delivered it in a way that I think could only come given my background in comedy and music, because I still beatboxed at the end. I did a spoken word poem. Now people are like, well, I don't know how the corporation is going to take to that. Well, let's just say that what I performed is a poem that is being used across the U.S. as part of their alternative learning curriculum because the Southern Poverty Law Center reached out to me to use it.
Oh, come on.
All of a sudden, they're like, wait a minute. This isn't just beatboxing now.
No, yeah.
Okay, the poverty, this is across the U.S. So I still found ways to inject who I was. And then I would send them a picture of myself, like, business suit. And they're like, yeah, do you have anything more casual?
So, you're like, hell yes.
So,
suit. It's like, oh,
homie, I started to realize that they liked the fact that I was different, that they wanted that. And so embrace that. And so when I went into this talk, and you know, talk was serious in terms of Black history prior to slavery, looking at cycles of oppression, how it's in their workplace, cross-referencing what they're doing in their workplace as it pertains to the federal initiative for strategies to combat racism. Then I brought it down to a micro level, looking at what the province is doing to combat anti-Black racism. Then I looked at their creed and looked at what their value systems were relative to, homie, I did my work. Yeah. And that 1 hour was mind-blowing. So to answer your question, it's like a superhero realizing, man, they got some other powers that they didn't even tap into yet. And from that perspective, in terms of helping to create more equitable, less racially biased workplaces, that's powerful. Yeah. And then paving the way for the next generation of folks who may become, you know, racialized if you will. They're saying by 2036, you know, almost 50% of the population in Ontario will be racialized population. So how we embrace and how we work with these folks, such as myself, within a corporate setting, within an office environment. So I'm beginning to see tangents of what I've been doing that I didn't know were there. So there's something bigger that's coming. You may start seeing me do some consultation work for companies that want me to work with them. And one of my good friends, Patrick Knight, who is one of the most decorated principals in the TDSB, is set to retire soon. And so once that happens, we'll be able to really do some great things that I think will be very transformative within corporations and companies.
That's awesome. And it's much needed, as we're seeing across the board. Oh, yeah. In politics, in the private sector, small businesses, doesn't matter. Like, there's a need for this very much. And I'm glad you're embracing it, to be honest, and your role of affecting change without being in that clinical talk. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, you know, like you put on a video in a workplace and be like, okay, we're done. I've done my racial training. You're like, no, like not anymore. Like that, it didn't work then. We have to accept in 2021, it's not going to work now. Like we need to impact the workers. We need to impact management. We need to impact owners to make them realize, okay, let me at least take a step back and acknowledge that something's wrong. That's the first step, right? No one's acknowledging anything's wrong.
Well, there's no acknowledgement, and you know, when you start to peel back the layers, there's no real thought into policies that can address some of these things. Where's your board of director? What are they doing? How diversified are they? How involved are they? You know what I'm saying? So when you start to peel back the layers, you start to get people to think. And what I think one of the other things that I got from these talks was when I spoke about my experience as a Black Canadian. I mean, obviously I'm fair skinned, I'm light skinned. We don't hear about the challenges that folks like myself may encounter, i.e. you're not Black. Yep. I'm darker than you when they're not. You know what I mean? And so there were other challenges, you know, that I'd faced. So, you know, one story that I share that I don't talk about, but I'm beginning to realize, man, I guess I should talk about this a bit more. When I was in grade 8, I had a teacher who was Caucasian, and she was giving examples of blue collar and white collar jobs. And she said, okay, you should, you know, Sean, you know, could you stand up? And I stood up in class and then chest out like, yeah, I'm good. I never felt that I was in trouble. You know, she just asking me to stand up to celebrate me in some way. I'm feeling good. She says, okay, you got we see Sean. Yes. All right. So Sean is more than likely going to be a garbage man for the rest of his life. And that's an example.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God, this happened. That's an example of a blue collar job. And then she had another a white girl stand up and said, okay, this girl right here, Kimberly, I won't say her last name, but Kimberly, because I remember it. Of course. She said, you know, she'll more than likely be a doctor. And that's an example of a white collar job. And the way I felt at the time, aside from feeling embarrassed and all these things, is we look to our teachers and our elders for answers. They're more wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they have an outlook on life where we go to them for answers. So what if this lady is seeing something that I don't see?
Right.
I'm only 13. She's got to be, you know, at the time, she probably was in her late 40s.
She must know, you know, she must be able to look at me and, you know, categorize me.
Maybe she's right.
So messed up.
Maybe she's right. But I knew she was wrong after contemplating it some more. And so I got my classmates to, you know, sign a petition, and then she got removed. And I found out like 10 years ago that my mother actually quietly, you know, spoke to the school and did what she had to do as an advocate. And so these things do happen. And so when I started to share these stories at even that corporate level, it made people realize, holy geez, like we like Sean. We can't believe you went through this. And so it brought home something very real to people who perhaps might have been in denial that these things could happen. And as we still see things happening, if you looked at, the not throwing shade, but some of these reports coming out for these school boards is startling as to what's still happening. And that's an example of what happens when you're being reactive instead of being proactive. You should be proactive.
It's like your point too. Oh, we like Sean. Oh, we like Sterling. He's a regional counselor.
Yeah.
What if I wasn't? What if you were just, Sean the actor, Sean whatever, and you just saw us down the street? Would you still have the impression of us? I like to think that yes, you would, but I'm also a realist in realizing that no, probably you will have some pretty specific ideas of who you think I am based on nothing, based on prejudice and stereotype, right? So it's a work in progress across the board. Like it's something I'm trying to do on the municipal level, something you're trying to do outside and in your larger sphere through your network. And it's, oh man, sorry, we this was not supposed to be all of this, by the way. Like,
sorry,
this is supposed to be, no, don't never apologize. This is it's I'm glad I was able to get you in the show before you became this big shot, which you're clearly destined to be. So you saw him here first. Well, actually, you didn't see him here first. You saw him everywhere else. Again, can we talk about your board game collection?
Okay.
And your Transformer collection?
Yeah. So
where did this start from? So just like I remember, I think Sean had posted something on his Facebook about like some board game, and I was like, oh my god, I haven't seen this board game in ages.
Oh, it was a Fireball Island.
Yes, Fireball Island, because I'd never seen a complete one. I always saw the commercials.
You did comment on that. That's right. Yeah.
And then Sean's like, oh yeah, check out this, and I get like a DM, and it's like this. I'm not gonna say closet. It's a room full of like board games. So that's one. And the next one was like where he's like a Transformer thing. I was like, oh, do you have this? And he's like, oh, you mean this? And he has like every single, like, I'm going to call it like Generation 1 Transformer possible. And I just blew my mind. So did you always have this collection? Like, where did this collecting start?
No. So I always loved, G.I. Joe Transformers growing up. And one day I came home and like 90% of my collection, my dad just threw it out. In all fairness, I wasn't playing with it. It didn't mean a big thing to me. They were just gone. And all I had were the few, I had like a small bag of them that were under my bed.
Right.
That were like my favorites. So those got spared just by fluke. And when he threw them out at the time, I didn't even care. Like I was like, all right, whatever. Always wanted to collect something growing up. And I tried various things, basketball cards, baseball cards, and nothing really stuck. And I said, I would love to collect something, but I don't know what to collect. So years and years and years and years later, I was at a friend of mine's house who's a breakdancer, Mariano Abaraka, aka Glizeye. Shout out to Glizeye if he's watching. And he lives in Oakville though, so he's not,
he's obviously watching.
He's watching.
Obviously he's watching.
You know what I'm saying? But after this story, he might watch. So we're in his basement, rehearsing for a show, and he says to me, yo, Sub, because they know me as Subliminal, right? So they call me Sub. Yo, Sub.
Is it an AKA Subliminal?
AKA Subliminal, yeah. AKA
Subliminal.
Research. That's right. But my friends call me Sub for short. And he said, yo, Sub, have you ever heard of eBay? I'm like, yeah, I heard of it, but I don't understand really what it is, man. He said, bruh, what's the one toy you've always wanted, man? I'm like, Omega Supreme. He goes, type it in. Go on eBay and type in Omega Supreme. I'm like, go on eBay, type in Omega Supreme. Oh, Omega Supreme. And Omega Supreme's there. And all these feelings came back to me, Sterling, man. I could tell you where I was, grade 2, Miss Cashin's class. This little kid, Vincent, came swinging it from the head. You can't love it like me, brother. You can't love it like me. And, all these things. So I started collecting little things. So I just like the way it made me feel. It's like a time portal, going back in time, the way it looked, the way the plastic felt, the way it smelled, man, everything. And so, yes, the 80s had a smell, man. If you look at my toy collection, breathe in, you could smell like, I don't know, maybe it's asbestos or something, you know what I'm saying? But it was something, okay? And, I just started, go on Kijiji. I see somebody selling, another G1. I'm like, okay, that's, $40, $30. And I like the way it feels. I don't care if it's nicked up, plastic, scratched. It's more for nostalgia.
It doesn't matter. It's you want it just because
I don't. Yeah, I'm not that dude that's got to be in shrink wrap. I'll never open it.
No,
nah,
that's not playing with it.
Nah, I need to feel it, and you know what I'm saying. And so it just started to grow from one to the next. And okay, all right, the Transformers are cool, but what about Texas Instruments Speak and Spell, man? I always wanted to speak and spell, to speak and read, speak and math.
Yeah.
Boom. There it is. Somebody's selling it for like $40. So I started to collect these things, and then friends would come over to my crib, and then they would see it. Like, I don't know, you ever seen a grown man drop to his knees and just cry, like, oh my God, like out of sheer joy.
That's what I did when I saw your collection.
Exactly. right? And so what I didn't realize, so Fireball Island, I got that for $120 complete from a guy in Oakville. And I was driving out to see my folks one day, and I said, Dad, we're just gonna go pick this up and then we'll go check our movie. Well, you can't find that board game now for less than $300-400 complete with the box. So I'm finding that things that I have now have actually, and I didn't buy them for that reason.
But just as a subset, it's just like,
huge.
Now we're getting value out of it.
Like triple, you know what I'm saying? And I really bought it just nostalgia, and then, pass on to my kids and they can do what they want with it, And so it just kind of grew. And then, the only thing left to do, like I thought, you got this amazing collection, which is hidden behind a really big projector screen that I have. So when you're down there, you can't see it. But when I click a button, this thing goes up. It's like, oh my God, right? People lose their minds. And then I decided the only thing missing is an arcade. You got to have an arcade. So I thought to myself, man, what would Sterling do, man? You know what I'm saying? So I got one arcade machine, and, well, one is cool, but you got to have more to get that sound.
Oh, no,
so.
Trust me. Sterling would just go crazy like he does with everything, right?
Yeah.
Like I have an interest and you just invest in the interest.
Yeah. So I started
fixing. How many you got?
You don't want to know, man.
I do want to know.
Okay, so to be honest, they're not official size. They're 3/4 scale
that's fine.
arcade one-up machines that I would fix. I'd get them for cheap and I would just fix them. So I have, in total, of arcade machines, like stand-up.
Yes.
So there's 5, okay? There's 5 stand-ups, but then there's also like 2 pinball machines, and then there's a sit-down driving cab, and then there's more flat screens up on the walls around for like Nintendo, and then Atari. Yeah. Everything's got a screen. So when you go down, there's about 16 screens. The place is lit up, and then you got all the sound. So friends come over, and then we go down there and we just wild and play 80s music. And then I'm a sound guy, play the sounds of 80s soundscape of ambient sounds of an 80s arcade.
The ching ching ching.
Ching 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 ching. Right, and all this stuff. And it's like going into a portal. It's like a time machine. So yeah.
So when am I invited is my next question.
Well, once we're through,
I'm just gonna invite myself.
Brother, listen, we can either wait for COVID to pass, or you can get a hazmat suit. One of the two.
One of the two. It doesn't matter.
Bring your loonies, man.
So which? Oh, I gotta pay for this.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I do not charge people. That would be illegal.
That would be amazing. And which arcade consoles do you? I'm guessing Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat.
So okay. So I got Street Fighter, a Galaga, Pac-Man, and then there's one that I gutted and put in a PS3 system. So that's got like Q*bert, a bunch. But then there's another 5th one I have that has over 3,000 games in it.
I got one of those too. I got like the double, but I never played. It's one of those. Yeah. I buy things and then just don't use them. Like I have a PlayStation 4, which I barely use, and then I got like Star Wars Squadrons. Like it just seemed like, oh, I get to fly an X-wing. This has been my dream since like 1981 when I was born. Like this is it. I never have time to play them, right? But it's just one of those. I'm glad I have it if I ever want to.
Well, you got a 3-year-old, man. So that for me, it's the same.
We're close. Like he's getting to that age where I can start introducing this stuff to him, and then we can play together, right?
So I thought we were getting okay, and then our 3-year-old now he thinks there's a portal in his closet. Yeah, so he doesn't want to sleep in his room. So now sleep is the new commodity. It's like, okay, I could stay up and I could play this, or I can go to bed. I think, what would Sterling do? You know what I'm saying? So bam, I'm out. And
that is what I would do, by the way. It's
exactly.
Like,
I know it, bro. I know it, right?
Yeah.
But I know, I think all things aside, we all have to have a release. Yeah. And when I share that story with the youth I work with, it's to show them that, you can be an adult, but you can still be a big kid. So when I was growing up, my father, their thing was to have a bar in the basement. Your boys come over and you drink. Yep. That doesn't make sense to me. Number one, I'm not that big of a drinker. Number two, the laws now, if somebody drinks, gets drunk, leave your house, and they coming after you. So that ain't happening. Yeah, right. But then number three is like, why am I spending all this money for you to come and drink out my stuff? That concept does not fly with me, bro. You know what I'm saying? So my parents, they had the bar. We got the arcade.
I hear you.
And one's a lot more fun than one would argue that maybe the drink is more fun, but not in my world.
No,
not in my world.
Yeah, absolutely not my world either.
But then again, maybe you get drunk and you think there's an arcade around you.
Then you had too much to drink.
Okay, forget about that.
By the way, your eBay story, I'm just thinking back to just your buddy introducing you to eBay. In my mind, the year is like 2020, and like you just discovered eBay. Like,
no, bro.
Oh my God, eBay.
Homie, the year would have been 2002, 2000.
Would have been early.
2001, maybe 2001. Yeah.
I,
And
remember,
then
I had first eBayed for a friend. He was like, "Oh, can you, I'm going out for something. Can you watch this eBay?" And I was like, "Cool. What's your top bid?" He's like, "Okay, make $400. That's the top bid." And he lost by $401.
wow.
And he's like, "Yo, why did you bet more?" And I was like, "Well, I asked you what your top bid was, and you said four." Like,
No, but there's people who just sit there like they wait for the last
know.
8 seconds.
I'm back in
and
the
then
day,
yeah.
and then Amazon just changed all of that. I'm just like, here's the cheap stuff, anyways.
Well, I think Kijiji flipped it too, man. You know what I'm
Kijiji
saying?
too,
Like
absolutely.
Kijiji is awesome, you know. But I love that stuff, man. That's my outlet, and it took years to build it up, and I just love. Part of me loves the fact that like how many people with an arcade in their basement, man. Like
It's
I think
the
I mean,
game. I mean, you were talking about like having so much money you didn't have to worry about it. Like I think we both are very rich in our own sense. It's
Yes,
just like
yes.
that's the dream you had when you were
Yes.
a kid, and that dream is no longer a dream. It's there.
it's there.
So I mean, like I'm incredibly grateful. I know you are too, of just these things we're providing for our children. Of just
Well,
like
you're touching on something else, Sterling, where you talk about being rich. And I tell the kids that because some people say I go to schools all the time, and kids they don't know, so they're like, "Are you rich?" And there was a time before
you say, "Yes, I am."
I did, at one time.
You're goddamn right.
I started saying I'd say no. Obviously, I'm not rich, okay.
Right.
But then I started. I have some friends who are rich, and I started to see their problems relative to my problems. And if you look at things as a ratio, people who have financial trouble who maybe make 60 to 70,000 a year, it can be proportional to somebody making 15 million a year because they got bigger expenses, bigger home, bigger cars, bigger. And I started to say, I'm never concerned about making payment. I have savings. I own my car. I never think about food. I work a certain amount of hours a day, and then the rest of it I can just be creative. I started to think, man, I kind of do feel rich. I kind of do feel like putting aside that I may not have millions, but as a proportion, when you have savings and you own your car and your rent or your thing is paid per month at the time, it kind of did feel like that. I had to shift my thinking a bit. I'm not in debt. My credit is excellent. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no,
this
totally,
is good.
Yeah.
And so I talk to kids about that concept of what does being rich mean? Because I know some celebrities, I won't say who, but they, I've had celebrities asking.
Is it
me-
Drake? Tell me it's Drake. You totally know Drake, don't you?
I met Drake once, man. It was funny. When we met at the I was a little slimmer at the time, and we shook hands. We were like looking at each other, like, man, we kind of look like each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
really weird, But no, my point is that celebrities can have a lot of problems too, man.
It's Sean Puffy Combs and Mace told me, more money, more problems.
More money, more problems, man. And I had a couple celebrities. I won't say who. I worked with them on a couple.
Come
movies.
on, drop a name.
Nah, Brian doing that to them,
drop
man.
one name.
I'll tell you one director who's also an actor who had a profound impact on me, and actually created a role for me in the Sonny Liston movie called The Phantom Punch. Was a director and actor named Robert Townsend.
Yes.
Okay, so Robert created that role for me that I had in that Sonny Liston movie, and I was at the time ready to give up acting, and he kind of saved me from that. And I remember we became very good friends. And one time I accidentally called his house at like 3:30 in the morning. He was sleeping. I forgot about the time difference with us in LA. Right. And I felt terrible, man. And he's like, yeah, what's up, Sean? What's up? I said, no, it's late. I'll call you tomorrow. He said, no, what's up? Like, yeah, you can hear somebody wiping their eyes, man.
Because technically, if it's 3 in the morning, you're calling them at 6:30 in the morning.
It was a crazy time, bro.
Yes,
it was
it's
crazy
in Eastern time as well.
Crazy. But my point is, he took the call, and I was insistent on leaving the call. He was like, "No, what's up? Like, let's talk." Like, that's some of my American friends. I gotta say, sometimes Americans get a hard rap, but their hearts are humongous, man.
Yep.
Any one of my American friends, they would answer the phone and always take the call. And so I remember Robert, being so looking at the wedding video with me and my wife, and just saying, man, I wish I had that, man. You know what I mean? Like it's so beautiful. It takes me back, and like you could just hear it in his voice how much he loved it and wishes that he had that, again. And so I mean it's a hard life. You know what I mean? So that's part of why I gave up doing some of the, and when we talk about the hip hop, Traveling the globe, being in hotels, it's glamorous at first, but then after a while, you want your bed, man.
And you want your family.
You want your family, you want your bed, and I just wasn't cut out for it. I wasn't cut out for it. I couldn't imagine my son grow. I couldn't imagine coming home, so 5-6 months later, my son's doing something completely different, and he looks different, and I wasn't there to see that.
Yep.
That's not cool with me. No judgment for other people who do that their jobs call for that. For me, Sean Mauricette, I need to be there, man.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. And then there are other dynamics as to why I kind of, moved away from the music started to change a little bit, and I started to change as well. And I was doing something called soul hop, which is like soulful hip hop, but I was stuck between, like, neo soul didn't want to hear a rapper because they thought I was just going to curse. And then rapping audiences didn't necessarily want to hear those smooth jazzed out beats.
Too soft, man.
It was too soft. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I was lost in the middle. I was lost in the sauce, man. And I had a small following. There's still people that get that hit me up like, when's the next album, man? Come on, Soul Hot, baby. I get it, but those things are really hard to pay the bills with, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's always going to be a part of me. It's always going to be a part of my presentations in a capacity, but I'm just shifting things now. And what you're going to see the next iteration of me is doing things at probably higher, corporate levels as well, but also diving back into the architecture and taking all these things that make me who I am and creating initiatives and projects for the betterment of humanity. So that may be curriculum. I may redesign the entire Toronto East Detention Center. Hint, you might see certain things coming, right? And the knowledge of that comes from being a conduit between the architectural world and the community and what's really needed.
Well, Sean, I want to be very respectful of your time. You've been very generous. And I just want to say, you've been an inspiration to me. Specifically, I can list 1,000 things of just like your community work and just your passion. But I think it's just the fact that you're not compromising who you are to be in this world now. You still embrace the fact that you're a funny guy. You still embrace the fact and that you haven't changed that, like you said, even in the corporate world, because it's something that I struggle with in politics with. You expect a politician to act and talk a certain way, and that's fine, but it's just like I struggle with that because I don't talk or act like that. This is generally who I am, and I am embracing the fact that, listen, when people met me at the doors, this is who they met and this is who they like. I don't have to act a certain way. In fact, being authentic, being true to myself is probably the best thing I can do to serve my constituents. So
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you, because every time I see you out there, I'm just like, oh, I don't have to pretend I got the stick up my butt and like talk because that's not who I talk, and people can see through that nonsense a mile away. Before we go though, is there a local nonprofit or a restaurant you want to plug?
Oh man, so there's a spot in Ajax.
Yes, here we go.
Flavors Restaurant.
Yes,
love
Kingston.
Yeah, homie, love the fusion, the food there.
You get the pork shoulder.
Yeah, all of the above, man.
Yeah.
Like love this stuff, man. I also love Barrel's Pepper Pot, fantastic, out in Pickering. And then I also love so for I guess a charitable or nonprofit, I did some great work with DBEN, so Durham Black Educators Network. Did some fantastic stuff with them. And last but not least, there's a gentleman, I still haven't checked it out, but it's a black brother who opened up a convenience store that is actually black owned. And it's in Ajax. I believe it's on Old Harwood Road. Somewhere there is it Pickering Village? I haven't been yet, man, but I saw his post and I just thought that was so dope. I just want to take the kids there just to buy a pack of gum and leave.
And just
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just show the love. We need to support, man. We need to show that love. And so, yeah.
I'll get you to send me that post via Facebook just so I can make sure we give them the proper plug necessary. Yeah. And Sean, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly check me out on my website, SeanMauricette.com. I'm currently in the process of updating certain things now that we've got these other branches of talking. I may be creating another website as well. And yeah, you know what I mean? It's like I said, it's Sean's had to take a step back a little bit with the kids, but as the kids are getting older, there are certain initiatives and things that we'll be launching, revamping the YouTube page. I haven't been doing YouTube for a little while now, but it's time. You know what I'm saying? There's so many great things that are on the horizon, projects that I'm working on in the background that I can't speak about quite yet, but if I get the funding to help bring it to life, i.e., the Autism Center in Ajax.
Yeah,
All
great.
right. So it's the
Yeah.
Grandview, correct. So there's things that I'm looking to do to help them to secure the last bit of funding. So there's things that I'm doing quietly in the background. And yeah, so hopefully we're going to see, I'd say within the next couple of years, I'd say year to 2 years, you're going to see some really transformative big things that I'll be involved in.
Well, we absolutely can't wait. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll definitely have you back. We didn't talk about movies, we didn't talk about music, we didn't talk, we got all the serious stuff out of the way. Then we can talk about the fun stuff after this. Folks, you can find me at Your Voice for Ajax on social, and obviously on the YouTube page. Subscribe, like. I get to a certain point, I get to rename the YouTube page. Right now, it's just letters. So, folks, just hit that subscribe button. Sean, thanks so much. And thanks again for joining Durham Unplugged. Stick around. We'll say goodbye to you privately. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.